Picture Pete Sullivan, 22 years old, standing in the roar of Jones and Laughlin Steel in Pittsburgh, 1942. Sweat hissing on the sand floor, green flames dancing off molten iron, the air thick with smoke that burned your lungs. Pete grips a long iron rabble, stirring 1,000 pounds of pig iron in a reverberatory furnace hot enough to melt copper pennies. His muscles churn the glowing mass, walking ceaselessly in 2,800-degree heat, turning raw ore into wrought iron that won't shatter under a hammer. When he balls his first perfect puddle, his foreman father weeps and says, "Now you're a man who feeds America." That puddler is number 7 on this list. You'll also meet the railway mail clerk who sorted 30,000 letters nightly on a swaying train at 60 miles an hour. The smelter man who ladled molten copper in Montana while sulfur fumes burned his lungs raw. And the locomotive engineer who whistled "America the Beautiful" while nursing a failing steam engine through a Wyoming blizzard to deliver tanks for D-Day. These 25 jobs were the highest-paying work in 1940s. America, because they demanded rare skill in a world without computers or automation. We traded their steady hands for screens and speed, losing not just jobs, but the quiet pride of making America from raw earth. Hit that subscribe button. Number 25. The Ice Cutter, New England Winter Lakes. French-Canadian families from Quebec settled New Hampshire's lake shores in the 1880s, harvesting ice blocks by the 1940s from Squam Lake for Boston markets, filling the gap as electric fridges crept in, but ships still needed packed fish holds. On 10-inch black ice in January, you'd plow 18-inch furrows with horse-drawn markers, then score with a handsaw and chip out 300-pound blocks using pike poles. Float them to the shore conveyor, pack in sawdust at the ice house, 22 inches thick for summer delivery. The crack of splitting ice echoed across frozen lakes like gunshots. Pierre LaRouche of Holderness, 1942, led his crew to cut 40,000 tons from Squam, despite a thaw. His daughter packed the last block, kissing it for the troops' meat lockers in the Pacific. Freon refrigerators hit mass production post-1945. By 1950, mechanical ice plants killed demand. Craft ice for cocktails now sells at $5 a pound, 100 times 1940s rates, while vintage ice houses become million-dollar Airbnbs, chasing the purity factories can't match. But number 24 paid even better for men who descended into darkness. Number 24. The Mine Foreman, West Virginia Coal Veins. Sons of Welsh and Italian diggers rose through United Mine Workers' ranks in the 1930s, becoming foremen by the 1940s in McDowell County's Pocahontas Field veins, overseeing bituminous output for steel mills as World War II demanded 600 million tons yearly. Lamp on helmet, you'd descend the slope mine at 6 a.m., chalking timber sets every 4 feet to shore the 8-foot seam. Direct auger crews cutting 20 tons per room, test gas with a canary, enforce 3-minute roof checks, yelling orders over the din of picks and shuttle cars rattling through tunnels black as midnight. Foreman Tony Rossi at Welch's No. 5 mine, 1946, pulled 6 men from a gas pocket after his canary dropped. Lost his brother but saved the shift. Honored at the Italian Hall picnic that summer. Federal Coal Mine Health and Safety Act of 1969 mandated college-trained engineers over practical foremen. Continuous miners now run remotely, but black lung claims spiked 1,000% since 2000, vindicating foremen's ventilation instincts, science confirmed too late. Number 23 earned more because the stakes were even higher. Number 23, the locomotive engineer, Union Pacific Main Lines. Hardened railmen from Wyoming ranch families joined Union Pacific in the 1920s, taking throttles by the 1940s to to haul war material over the Wasatch Range main lines from Omaha to Ogden, powering the Lend-Lease lifeline when trucks couldn't climb snow-packed grades. Perched in the cab of a 4884 Big Boy, you'd polish the injectors, build steam to 300 pounds per square inch, then ease the Johnson bar forward. Watch gauges for crown sheet pressure while signaling the firemen to shovel 10 tons of coal per shift, brakes hissing at every siding, the whistle's wail echoing off canyon walls. Engineer Hank Larson, Cheyenne Division in 1944, nursed a failing Challenger through a blizzard to deliver tanks to the port of Portland. His fireman's son later said Hank whistled, "America the Beautiful," the whole way, greeting troops at the yard. Diesel electrics from EMD rolled out in 1941, fully replacing steam by 1959 as fuel costs dropped 40%. Remote control locomotives now let one engineer run 3 trains from a desk, safer stats, but derailments rose 20% post-automation. Number 22 required even steadier hands. Number 22. The toolmaker, wartime arsenal factories. Precision craftsmen from German-American machine shops in Springfield Armory, Massachusetts, ramped up in 1941 when FDR's arsenal of democracy called for them to craft dies and jigs for M1 Garand rifles, filling the need for flawless parts as Europe fell and Pearl Harbor hit. In oily shops lit by gooseneck lamps, you'd grind high-speed steel on a bench grinder, then hand-file to 0.001-inch tolerances using a surface plate and bluing ink. Set up the shaper or milling machine with custom fixtures, test-fitting brass prototypes until the whistle blew, sparks flying like 4th of July fireworks. Walter Klein of Watertown Arsenal, outside Boston, in 1943, hand-tooled the master die for B-17 bomb bay releases. Saved a delayed shipment that reached the 8th Air Force just before D-Day, as his wife recalled in a letter read at his Union Hall funeral. Computer numerical control machines, introduced by 1948 at GM, automated the grinding and filing by 1960. CNC can't match the toolmaker's intuitive tweaks for one-off repairs, so aerospace firms now retrain heritage machinists at $120,000 salaries, while 1940s men did it for pennies. But number 21 built things that lasted centuries. Number 21. The stonemason, Vermont barn builders. Scottish and Irish immigrants who settled the Green Mountains in the 1830s built fieldstone walls and foundations for dairy barns as Vermont's hill farms pushed against rocky soil. By the 1940s, amid post-war rebuilding after floods, they raised massive granite-walled barns for expanding Holstein herds in Addison and Chittenden counties. You'd start at dawn with a team of 2, chiseling slate-gray schist from ledges using star drills and feathers, wedges hammered into holes to split blocks precisely. Haul them by horse sled to the site, then dry-lay walls 2 feet thick, corbelling the corners for strength, topping with oak beams. No mortar, just gravity, and the stone's natural wedge shape. Old man Ezra Perkins of Middlebury, 68 in 1947, taught his grandson to listen to the rocks ring before striking. After laying the walls for the Congregational Church barn that stood 50 years, sheltering neighbors' cows through the '48 flood when the Winooski overflowed. Post-war concrete blocks and cinder blocks, mass-produced after 1945, undercut the labor by 1952. Today's dry stack walls fetch $150 per linear foot from hip landscapers, 50 times the 1946 rate, while original barns crumble, their wisdom proven by engineers who now mimic the technique for earthquake zones. Number 20 moved the steel that built those barns. Number 20. The Crane Man, New York Shipyards. Down in Brooklyn's New York Naval Shipyard, where the 1941 war emergency ramped up Liberty ship production, cranemen, Irish and Italian dock workers unionized by the ILA, hoisted 20-ton steel plates for welders amid riveting clamor on the East River, filling the gap from Pearl Harbor labor shortages. Perched in a steel cab, you'd swing Fairchild hammers with foot pedals and levers, cables groaning under booms, dropping plates within inches, while harbor wind whipped oil smoke and sparks into your face. The screech of metal on metal, the thud of plates settling into place, the constant dance of avoiding swinging loads. Craneman Patrick O'Brien saved a welder's life near Pier 2 in 1943 by spotting a swinging load. The man's wife baked pies for O'Brien's shift every Friday after. Post-war containerization and computerized cranes by 1950, plus shipyard closures under Eisenhower, automated them out. Remote control cranes glitch more than skilled hands ever did. Your grandfather's eye caught what sensors miss. Number 19 dug the ditches that fed America. Number 19. The Ditcher, California Irrigation Projects. Out in the San Joaquin Valley, where Dust Bowl migrants from Oklahoma settled in the 1930s, ditchers, teams of Mexican-American and Okie laborers, dug canals for the Central Valley Project to irrigate almond groves and cotton fields amid the wartime farm boom, started by the Bureau of Reclamation in 1933. With Fresno scrapers, horse-pulled steel blades 8 feet wide, and shovels, you'd cut 4-foot deep ditches, tamp earth walls with picks, line bottoms with gravel. Sweat-soaked shirts clung in 110-degree heat, the scrape of blade on hardpan echoing over the flats, dust clouds choking your throat. Manuel Garcia near Bakersfield in 1944 led a crew for the Chavez family ranch after a drought killed their crop. The family threw a tamale feast, naming their first son after him. Federal pumps and concrete-lined canals by 1949, plus diesel tractors, mechanized it all. Drip irrigation saves water, but costs $2,000 an acre now. Manual labor ran 50 cents an hour in 1940, $8 today. Number 18 chopped the wood that warmed their camps. Number 18. The wood chopper, Adirondack forests. Up in the Adirondack wilds of upstate New York, where the 1938 Great New England Hurricane toppled millions of trees across Hamilton and Essex counties, wood choppers, mostly French-Canadian loggers' sons, harvested blowdown for pulp mills and home fires in the 1940s, answering the Forest Service's salvage call. You'd swing a double-bit axe, 3.5 pounds of Pittsburgh steel, felling 13-foot logs with crosscut saws in teams called Gandy dancers who hopped rhythmically to muscle through beech and maple. The forest floor slick with sap and bark chips, axes thunking like thunder, the sweet smell of fresh sawdust. Sam Lasher near Long Lake in 1943 chopped for the Shepherd family's camp after illegal loggers burned evidence. His pay was $4 a cord, and the family shared venison stew by the fire. State forest rangers and chainsaws in the 1950s, plus expanding forest preserve laws, motorized logging. Hand-felled wood stoves are hip now at $500, while 1940s rates hit $40 per cord, $600 today equivalent. But number 17 required precision that machines still can't match. Here is what nobody says out loud. These men didn't vanish because they failed. They out-earned teachers wielding skills machines mimicked poorly. We traded their steady hands for screens and speed, losing not just jobs, but the quiet pride of making America from raw earth. You feel it in empty rail yards. We move quicker now, but build less that lasts. This one breaks my heart. We stopped trusting the tinkerers who knew fire and iron like kin. Number 17. The millwright, Appalachian grist mills. Picture the holler fog lifting off Boone Creek in eastern Kentucky, where Scots-Irish descendants kept family grist mills grinding corn for moonshine and cornbread amid coal camp poverty in the 1920s. Millwrights, trained in WPA vocational shops, repaired water wheels and stone burrs for communities in the Cumberland Plateau. You'd jack up the mill race gate with wooden levers, chisel new oak shafts on a pit saw, fit iron bearings greased with hog lard, and balance the wheel so it hummed steady against the current. The air thick with wet stone dust and creek spray, the wheel's rhythm like a heartbeat through the holler. Near Hazard in 1941, millwright Eli Johnson rebuilt the McIntosh family mill after a flood. The widow McIntosh baked him ash cakes, and her boys learned the trade watching him work Sundays. Tennessee Valley Authority dams in the late 1940s flooded hollows and electrified the region, replacing water power with grid mills by 1950. Modern roller mills strip nutrients faster, but slow stone-ground flour sells for $8 a bag now, what cost 10 cents per hundredweight in 1940. Number 16, hammered metal that outlasted everything we make today. Number 16. The tinsmith, rural Midwest workshops. Back when the Dust Bowl choked the Great Plains from Texas to North Dakota in the 1930s, families in rural workshops around Des Moines and Cedar Rapids turned to tinsmiths, mostly German immigrant families who'd settled there after the Civil War, filling the gap left by factory shortages during the Depression. You'd heat thin tin sheets over a coal forge, snip patterns with shears, fold seams with mallets and stakes on a wooden bench, then solder joints with a hot iron dipped in muriatic acid and bar solder. It smelled sharp like vinegar and metal, and the finished bucket gleamed like new silver. Near Ames in 1942, Heinrich Schultz fixed a church group's rain barrels for the Lutheran congregation after a hailstorm shredded them. The pastor paid him in eggs and a ham, and Schultz's work lasted another 20 years. Post-war aluminum and plastic goods flooded Sears catalogs by 1948, plus electric welding machines made custom tin obsolete. Now those mass-produced plastic buckets crack in the cold, while artisan tinsmiths charge $150 for a simple pail that Schultz made for 75 cents. Number 15, carved stone that still stands today. Number 15. The Stonecutter, Indiana limestone quarries. Carved out in the Bedford quarries of southern Indiana during the 1940s, Empire State Building expansions and war memorials, where Italian stonemason families like the Morettis chiseled blocks for Art Deco facades from Monroe County pits. You'd swing 20-pound chisels and mallets on channeling machines, scoring 4-by-8-foot blocks from limestone beds, dusted in white powder, eyes squinting through goggles, then bush hammer surfaces smooth, loading them on flat cars with come-alongs for Chicago skyscrapers. The ring of steel on stone echoed across the quarry like church bells. In 1943, stonecutter Gino Rossi at Ulitic Quarry etched a fallen son's name on a B-17 memorial block for his Bedford church. Neighbors gathered at Vespers to touch the letters, sharing vino from his family's jug into the 50s. Precast concrete and aluminum siding boomed post-1950 Levittown housing. Union wages doubled, pricing limestone out by 1960s suburban builds. Indiana limestone revives in sustainable luxury homes at $50 per square foot, 30 times original, while fake stone veneer cracks in 10 years. Number 14, cut timber that built the West. Number 14. The Sawyer, Pacific Northwest lumber camps. Sprang up in the cedar groves of Grays Harbor County, Washington, during the 1940s war housing rush, when Wobbly's Union loggers and camp bosses like Hank Olson powered mills feeding Liberty shipyards from Olympic Peninsula camps. You'd straddle a 2-man crosscut saw, 6 feet of Pittsburgh steel, rocking it through 3-foot Douglas fir logs, greased with kerosene, wedges hammered in to split the kerf, amid sawdust clouds and steam whistles, felling 20 trees daily before steam donkeys yarded them to the mill pond. The sweet smell of cedar sap, the crash of giants hitting earth. Sawyer Pete McAllister in a Forks, Washington camp in 1944 lost his partner to a widowmaker limb. He carved the man's initials into his saw handle, teaching the Green Kid replacement over flapjacks, their duo topping camp quotas through 46. Chainsaws from McCulloch Motors spread post-1947, slashing crews 80%. OSHA logging regs in 1970 ended two-man teams. Artisanal hand-sawn lumber now sells for $10 per board foot in hipster markets, 20 times 1940s prices, while chainsaw mills spit out knotty warps no craftsman would touch. Number 13 sailed the inland seas. Number 13. The deckhand Great Lakes freighters took root on the iron ore docks of Duluth, Minnesota in the 1940s, when Great Lakes freighters like the R.J. Hackett line loaded taconite for Detroit steel mills. Finnish and Swedish immigrants, led by captains like Ole Swanson, filled the need for hands to wrestle 10,000-ton loads through Sioux locks. You'd chip frozen ore from hatches with picks in sub-zero gales, coil 2-inch hawsers by hand, paint rust-eaten rails with red lead brushes, stand cargo watches unloading limestone at stone docks. Muscles burning, hands raw from Lake Superior spray, 60 days straight on a 60-30 schedule. The ship, your world. Deckhand Jimmy Finn. Laxo, aboard the SS William A. Irvin in 1942, hauled a fallen mate from icy deck during a November gale off two harbors. The crew etched his name on the pilot house plaque, sharing lutefisk suppers in his honor every layover. 1,000-foot, 1,000-footers, automated unloading with self-loaders by the 1970s. Union contracts phased out deck gangs as diesel tech cut crews from 35 to 12. Self-unloading ships carry the same ore, but mariners now complain of boredom. Those gritty deckhands kept ships alive through storms tech can't match. Number 12 kept the trains running on time. Number 12. The Baggage Man, Pennsylvania Stations. Emerged in the grand concourses of Pennsylvania Station in New York and Philadelphia during the 1940s soldier surge, when Pullman porters and station masters like veteran Gus Riley organized trunks for 2 million GIs monthly heading to Europe via troop trains. You'd wrestle steamer trunks, hat boxes, and typewriters onto scales at the baggage window, 25 cents per piece under 150 pounds. Tag them with brass clips, heave them onto creaky carts, dodge crowds in the steam-filled underbelly, and lock them in iron cars with padlocks, sniffing for contraband like fruit. At Philly's Penn Station in 1944, baggageman Lena Vasquez, one of the few women hired for the war, packed a young nurse's kit for D-Day. The girl slipped her a locket with a note, "If I don't come back, give to Mama." And Lena wore it until VJ Day. Airline deregulation in 1978 and Amtrak's 1971 cuts ended trunk hauling. Jet travel boomed post-1947, shrinking rail passengers 90% by 1960. Airport baggage handlers now earn less adjusted for inflation, and lost luggage hits 25 million bags yearly. Your grandma's baggageman never lost a tagged trunk. Number 11 waved the flags that prevented disasters. If any of these are bringing back memories, hit that subscribe button, because the second half of this list is where it gets personal. Number 11. The Flagman, Southern Pacific Lines, born in the dusty rail yards of Roseville, California, during the 1940s war boom, when Southern Pacific Lines hauled troops and freight from San Francisco Bay to the Sierra Nevada passes. Started by railroad foremen like old Pete Harlan, who trained Irish and Mexican track gangs to keep trains from colliding on single tracks. You stood trackside in a bright red cap and vest, waving a green flag for go, red for stop, yellow for caution, day or night under kerosene lanterns. Swung a stopwatch to time meets precisely, shouted signals over the roar, then dashed to the next siding with a toolbox of spikes and flags, muscles aching from 12-hour shifts in 100-degree heat. In 1943, flagman Tommy Ruiz saved the Yosemite Valley Limited near Bakersfield by flagging down an ammo train. His quick yellow wave halted it 50 feet from a washout, earning him a handshake from engineer Bill Cody and a spot in the crew's Friday night poker game forever. Automatic block signaling systems rolled out post-1946 by the Interstate Commerce Commission, using electric tracks to stop trains remotely. No more human flags needed after the Rail Safety Act of 1950. Self-driving freight trains now use those same signals, but derailments like East Palestine show computers still glitch where a flagman's eye caught the flaw. Number 10. Cleaned the boilers that powered America. Number 10. The boiler washer, Ohio River steamers. River rat families from Cincinnati's East End. German boiler tenders since the 1920s flood rebuilds. They scoured packet boat boilers weekly from 1941, keeping coal burners hauling fuel oil upriver when highways iced over. Clad in oilskins, you'd crawl through 8-inch manholes into 20-foot scalding drums, high-pressure hoses blasting scale with lye and soda ash slurry, hammers chipping rivet crust, emerging black as coal after 4 hours amid ammonia fumes and 200-degree steam bursts. The echo of hammers in the drum, like being inside a bell. In 1943, aboard the stern-wheeler Delta Queen at Louisville Docks, washer Gus Mueller cleared a clogged firebox solo during a storm, averting explosion that'd sink her. Captain gave him the pilot's wheel for a day as thanks. Oil-fired boilers from Evansville yards spread post-1948, atomizing fuel sans ash buildup. By 1955, diesel tugs replaced steamers on the Ohio. Microbreweries revive boiler wash descolers at $50 a jug for kettles, validating the old lye mix that prevented pinhole ruptures better than chemical sprays. Number 9. Moved cargo with their backs. Number 9. The Stevedore, New Orleans docks. Creole and Sicilian longshoremen from Algiers Point across the Mississippi, organizing under shape-up bosses since the 1920s, they muscled cotton bales and banana crates onto Liberty ships by 1942, fueling the arsenal of democracy when Europe starved for cargo. Hook in your belt, you'd swing 100-pound burlap sacks from muleback carts onto nets, 20 at a load hoisted by creaking booms, stacking them 40 feet high in holds slick with river mud, shouts in French patois echoing as pallets swung wild over the levee. The sweet smell of molasses mixed with diesel fumes. Big Mike Fontana at Napoleon Avenue Wharf in 1944 shouldered an extra pallet of sulfa drugs during a hurricane scare, refusing a break till the hold filled. Saved a convoy that patched boys at Leyte Gulf. His widow got his union pin. Containerization from Matson Lines hit in 1956 at Port of New Orleans. Cranes loading 40-foot boxes sans hands by 1960. Cruise ships now longshore tourists at $200 a head, where stevedores slung for pennies. Studies show hand-loaded holds resisted sea swells better than today's rattle-prone containers. Number 8 threw the switches that guided the rails. Number 8. The Switchmen, Kansas Freight Yards. Hard-bitten Irish railmen from Topeka's Rock Island yards, descendants of 1920s, hobos turned union hands. They threw switches for endless strings of wheat cars and troop trains, starting 1941, keeping Kansas City's war freight humming when highways choked. Lantern in one hand, brass lever in the other, you'd jog along swaying boxcars at 10 miles an hour. yank the 300-pound switch rod to shunt reefers onto sidings. Brakes screeching like banshees, then signal the engineer with hand flags, red for stop, white for clear, dodging couplers that could crush a man flat. In 1943, at Armourdale Yards in Kansas City, Kansas, switchman Pete Kowalski halted a runaway ammo train bare seconds from a troop sleeper, losing 2 fingers but saving 500 boys headed to the Pacific. His crew bought him beers for life at the Switchman's Club. Centralized traffic control signals from Topeka, installed in 1951, automated switches via telegraph. Diesel locomotives ending steam crew needs by 1955. GPS rail now fails in blizzards where switchmen thrived. Their split-second reads beat computers, and craft beer labels like Switchman's Pale nod to the lost art at $8 a six-pack. Number 7 stirred molten iron with his bare hands. Number 7. The Puddler, Pittsburgh Steel Mills. This craft ignited in the Monongahela Valley around 1880, when Welsh immigrant puddlers like David Thomas brought secrets from Welsh forges to Jones and Laughlin Steel in Pittsburgh, filling the desperate need for wrought iron as railroads exploded across America. You'd stir pig iron in 1,000-pound reverberatory furnaces, using long iron rabble tools to oxidize impurities, walking ceaselessly in 2,800-degree heat for 4-hour shifts. Muscles churning the glowing mass into blooms you could hammer without shattering. Sweat hissing on the sand floor, the air thick with acrid smoke, green flames dancing like demons. In 1942, at the height of war steel demands, Pete Sullivan of the Amalgamated Association balled his first 500-pound puddle at age 22, handing it to his foreman father who wept, saying, "Now you're a man who feeds America." Automation hit with basic oxygen furnaces in the 1950s, pioneered by Bethlehem Steel in 1954, slashing the need for human stirrers. Today, boutique blacksmiths charge $5,000 for custom wrought iron gates, 20 times a puddler's weekly haul adjusted, while mass steel is cheaper but brittle, proving the old hand-beaten stuff outlasts our throwaway beams. Number 6 shaped the sand that cast America's engines. Your grandfather knew this. You probably don't. These weren't just jobs. They were apprenticeships in reading fire, metal, and weather. A puddler could tell iron's mood by its color. A switchman felt a train's weight through his boots. We replaced their intuition with sensors that fail in the rain. Think about that. Number 6. The Molder, Detroit auto plants. Those Polish and Italian clans from Hamtramck, Michigan, who flooded Ford's River Rouge in the 1930s, they birthed the molder trade to shape sand molds for V8 blocks when civilian car runs halted in 1942, retooled overnight to cast aircraft pistons for Willow Run bombers. You'd ram damp green sand into wooden patterns with a pneumatic tamper, slick it with graphite slurry, lift the cope and drag halves apart, yank the pattern with hooked tongs, then reassemble over a core box of baked sand. Ladle in the 1,400-degree aluminum, steam hissing as it cooled into flawless engine parts, the shop thick with coal dust and the tang of molten metal. Angelo Rossi at Chrysler's Highland Park plant in 1944 molded a special run for B-24 Liberator props, while his cousin lay wounded in Normandy. He carved a tiny crucifix into one mold's edge, a secret prayer that flew over Europe. His foreman pretended not to notice. Die-casting machines from Chicago's Buhler plants took over by 1957, squeezing sand molds out as Detroit chased high-volume stampings for tail fins. Vintage car restorers now beg for 1940s sand-cast replicas at $10,000 a pop, while factory die-cast parts warp in crashes. Science later confirmed sand cooling made metal tougher, grain for grain. Number 5, ladled liquid fire. Number 5. The Ladler, Birmingham Iron Foundries. You remember those sturdy families from Birmingham, Alabama's Ensley neighborhood, mostly sons of Welsh and Scottish immigrants who poured into Jones Valley foundries in the late 1930s. They started ladling molten pig iron to feed blast furnaces, turning out shells for the war effort by 1942. Picture a man in sweat-soaked overalls, gripping a 50-pound steel ladle with wooden handles wrapped in asbestos cloth, dipping it into 2,700-degree rivers of iron from open hearth pits. He'd swing it overhead in a wide arc, muscles straining against the 200-pound load, pouring steady streams into sand molds for engine blocks or bomb casings, sparks flying like 4th of July fireworks. Harlan Tate from Ensley Car Works, in 1943, ladled through a 12-hour shift while his boy shipped out to Anzio, then slipped an extra pour to a widow's scrap order so her family could eat. Neighbors still whisper about how he burned his hands raw, but never complained. Electric arc furnaces rolled out from U.S. Steel's Gary, Indiana plants in 1952, automated the pour with robotic tilters by 1955. Those old ladlers scoffed at safety gear, but today's OSHA mandates prove their grit. Hand-poured iron was purer, less gassy than machine-melted stuff that cracks under heat. Number 4 tended the engines that pulled America. Number 4. The Engine Hostler, Chicago Rail Yards. Emerged in Chicago's back of the yards around 1880, when Irish hostlers at Union Stockyards rail spurs cared for locomotives amid meatpacking booms, meeting the crush of 100 daily freights hauling hogs from Iowa. In vast 47th Street yards, under sodium lamps, you'd fire up Baldwin 484 steamers at dawn, scooping 10 tons coal hourly into fiery boxes with long peels, bleeding cylinders with oil cans, ash-panning glowing clinkers while dodging 200-degree steam blasts, prepping engines for mainline runs. The roar of steam, the clang of shovels, the hiss of pressure valves. In 1946, Polish-American Stan Kowalski at Atchison, Topeka, and Santa Fe's Corwith Yard nursed a crippled war freight hauler through a blizzard, getting Rosie the Riveter's parts to Willow Run, Michigan. His widow kept his greasy hostler's badge on the mantle. Diesel-electric locos from EMD in LaGrange, Illinois, starting 1941, obsoleted steam care by 1955. No coal, no ash. Diesels guzzle more fuel long-term, per rail historians, while hipster steam excursions now fetch $300 tickets, 25 times a hostler's day rate. Number 3 sorted America's mail at 60 miles an hour. Number 3. The Railway Mail Clerk, Transcontinental Routes. It sparked in 1864 amid Civil War chaos, when route agents on the Hannibal and St. Joseph Railroad in Missouri sorted letters en route, evolving into the Railway Mail Service by 1910's peaks, with 20,000 clerks filling the void for rural America as trains linked farms to cities. In swaying RPO cars on the Chicago to San Francisco Overland Limited, you'd grab sacks via mail hooks at 60 miles per hour without stopping, sorting 30,000 pieces nightly into 500 pigeonholes by state case schemes, stamping postmarks with inky thud, the train's rhythm your clock amid coal smoke and lantern glow. In 1943, black clerk William H. Carney on the Pennsylvania Railroad's Spirit of St. Louis from New York to Chicago caught a dangling Chicago-bound pouch at 70 miles per hour near Altoona, Pennsylvania, saving wartime V-mail for troops. His family in Harlem framed the post office commendation. Mechanized zip sorting and highways ended it. The 1963 Zone Improvement Plan and last RPO run in 1977 as trucks took over. Science proved their speed unbeatable. Modern bots lag on irregular mail, while express services now charge triple for overnight what clerks did free. Number 2, breathed poison to forge America's copper. Number 2, the Smelter Man, Montana Copper Country. Took root in Butte, Montana's richest hill on earth in the 1880s, when Cornish miners at Anaconda Copper Mining Company's Washoe Smelter processed arsenic-laced ore from 2-mile-deep shafts, powering wiring for Edison's grids nationwide. Clad in asbestos hoods amid 2,200-degree matte converters, you'd charge 50-ton furnaces with quartz, rock slag, and coke, skimming blister copper via long poles as green flames roared, ladling molten pores into ingot molds while sulfur fumes burned lungs raw for 12-hour turns. The air shimmered with heat. The ground trembled with furnace thunder. In 1944, Anaconda Reduction Works, Croatian smelterman Ivan Petrovic saved a runaway converter pour, shielding co-worker Joe Lukic. The town saloon toasted him with Copper Club whiskey, his story in the Anaconda Standard. EPA Clean Air Act of 1970 and open pit leaching closed it. Anaconda Stack imploded 1982 amid Superfund toxins. Modern green copper from Chile skips artisan purity, corroding faster, while Montana artisanal ingots sell for $50 per pound, 30 times 1940's scrap value. And here is where it gets personal. Number 1. The Loom Fixer. New England textile towns. Born in Lowell, Massachusetts, in the 1820s, when Francis Cabot Lowell's power looms jammed daily in the Merrimack Valley mills, employing Franco-Belgian fixers recruited by the Boston Associates to keep 500 looms per room, humming for cotton, booming from southern plantations. You'd crouch under clacking frames in wool dust clouds, wielding shuttles, picks, and heddles, replacing snapped warps with flying fingers, oiling cams slick as clockwork, tying 1,000 knots per shift while dodging 400-pound flying shuttles that could kill. The deafening clatter of machinery, the sweet smell of lanolin, the dance of staying alive among iron teeth. In 1941, Lawrence, Massachusetts, Italian immigrant Rosa Bianchi, mother of 6, fixed a doffed loom in 90 seconds during a night shift at wood-worsted mills, saving her crew's bonus. Her daughter later recalled Rosa coming home with bloodied hands, whispering, "The looms sing when you listen." Synthetics and southern mills killed it. DuPont's nylon looms in 1946 needed no fixers, and air-conditioned Georgia plants like those in Spartanburg drew jobs south by 1950 via Taft-Hartley union busts. Now, artisanal weaving workshops in Portland, Maine sell $800 scarves from hand looms, tenfold the fixer's wage, yet fast fashion shreds faster than wool held. This was not just about money. This was about knowing your worth came from what your hands could do. Rosa Bianchi didn't fix looms for the paycheck. She fixed them because her family ate when the mill ran smooth. That pride, that connection between skill and survival, we traded it for convenience and lost something we can't name. These people were not poor. They were resourceful. And we lost something when we stopped listening to them. Ask your grandmother about this. Ask her if she remembers the sound of looms, the whistle of steam engines, the smell of hot metal in the foundry where her father worked. Ask her what it felt like when those jobs disappeared, when the mills closed, when the railroads went quiet. Share which one of these brought back a memory in the comments. Maybe your grandfather was a switchman. Maybe your great-uncle worked the docks. Maybe you remember the last ice delivery to your neighborhood. Try this yourself. Next time you see a craftsman working with his hands, watch how he reads the material, how he adjusts without thinking, how he knows things no manual can teach. That's what we lost when we automated these jobs away. We built America with muscle, grit, and steel rails crisscrossing a nation that believed in the dignity of hard work. We're faster now, but we've forgotten the craft that built us.